we actually we did rehearsal. And then we went into production for 3 weeks, and then we went up to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where we filmed for 1 week. And I remember us going up, I think it was the 30th of October, because the very next night...
Visual aids!
The very next night we were out there in the, at the inn doing the hotel. We were doing a little Halloween trick-or-treating and stuff. And
in the snow.
In the snow. So it was one of my first plane trips out of the area.
We dressed as the Waltons for Halloween.
I remember that Eric drew really, really good trees. This is like the sort of memory you have when you're 6 years old, because we had school on the set, and I remember looking over your shoulder because you drew beautiful trees, and I thought that was amazing. And I remember the snow, because I was a California kid, so snow was a big deal. And the clothing we were wearing was pretty much from the 1930s. So our little shoes were not watertight, and the snow was deep. And so they would put our feet, our folks would put our feet in little plastic bags to keep them warm.
They didn't do that with mine.
Except for Eric. And when you look at the footage, at that picture, where's the visual aid? Judy? Judy? The snow came up to like here for me, because I was that tall. And I couldn't keep up. It was impossible. And when the sequence starts, I'm like in front, and I just fall further and further and further and further behind.
And what I was doing, I remember this I was looking at where her feet were coming up so I could put my feet in there. That's what I was doing, because it was real tough to get through that.
I was following the cow's footprints.
I'm going to tell you one story I remember about Cammie, and I don't know if Mary will remember this, dressing, because we had all these layers of clothes, and I remember Cammie had these tights, and you have to hold the microphone for me for a second, and her mom would be trying to pull her tights up, and she would be literally, Cammie would be jumping up and down off the ground because the tights weren't, you know girls know how tights are when they don't come all the way up. Well, the tights were ending about here, and her mom was trying to... Okay, here we go. So she'd be hauling her, and she'd be jumping up and down trying to get her tights on.
The memory, she didn't think you were going to get this, did you?
Yeah, there's also, if you look another clothing, if you look very closely, there's a scene when we're all sitting around having dinner, and then we decide to go out someplace. This is the homecoming, so we must have been going to the store.
No, we're going to Crack Walnuts.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to Crack Walnuts, but I remember that we had to get out of the door, all of us at once, and all our clothes were hanging on a hook behind the door. And Patricia Neal, who played our mother, was sort of saying, you take care of Elizabeth, you all be careful now, and sending us out the door. And I had like a coat and a scarf and mittens and a hat. And as a 6-year-old, I was a realist. It had to be accurate, and I knew I should get all this clothing on. And if you'd let me get all that clothing on, it would have taken half an hour. And I had about 30 seconds. And so if you look, Patricia Neal throws me out the door. Because I'm still trying to get my mittens on.
She took direction so well. John, your memories?
My memories of the homecoming. Gosh.
Oh, you should remember.
Thank you. The first thing I remember about the homecoming was actually the auditions.
Oh, yeah.
And I was in high school at the time, and my mother picked me up, and she said, well, you have an audition today at CBS, and it's for a TV movie called The Homecoming. And we're driving to CBS, and I thought, I said, this could be really great, because at the time, TV movies were a relatively new thing. I think they started around 1970, and there was, I think, That Certain Summer with Martin Sheen, and it was Brian's Song or something like that. I think maybe they preceded The Homecoming, I'm not sure. But there had been a couple on, and it was kind of like the new thing in broadcasting. But what they were doing with some of them is that they were turning them into TV series. So when I heard TV movie, I said, Mom, this could be great. I said, they're turning these things into series. And she went, oh, really? And
that does sound like her.
And so they kind of, dropped it there. And then I went on the audition. As it turns out, they were looking for a kid, at least in the script it said, Jason plays the harmonica. So my mother was thoughtful enough to bring my harmonica. So I went into the audition and I actually played it for Earl, and I guess maybe Bob Jacks was there or whoever. So I think they were suitably impressed that I, got the part. And then later on, we were in Jackson Hole, riding on that bus out to the location, and I remember saying, if this becomes a series, I can see this going for like 6 years. And what I didn't know at the time, well, this has happened to me like twice in my life when I've had these kind of casual thoughts that actually turned out to be something. I didn't know until about a year ago that there was no plan to make the Waltons a series at all. No one was talking about it or thinking about it. Earl just had this great book, and they decided to make a Christmas movie out of it. And it wasn't until a few months later, it was one of those times when Congress was saying, coming down hard on the networks and saying, you've got to clean up your act. We need more family programming. And the guys at CBS were having a board meeting, and they said, well, what are we going to do? Congress is breathing down our necks again. And somebody said, what have we got? And somebody said, well, we had that TV movie. Maybe we could do something with that. And so here we are.
Edgar Bergen did something very special for us when we were kids because we missed Halloween and we were there. And even though our teacher on the set organized this little door-to-door with our parents to give us candy, it was pretty dull. So he took us into the lobby with the big fireplace, and he had these suitcases. And he pulled out these interesting little things that I had never seen before, and he did a whole show for us. So
of course, they were Charlie McCarthy and Mortimer Snerd.
And it was great. And the thing was that he made Santa.
Santa Claus was in the chimney. I could hear him.
He threw the voice.
He threw his voice up the chimney, so it was like, ho, 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 it's Santa.
Happy birthday, dear Eric. Happy birthday to you.
Fine, I'll